Welcome to Lesson 1 of 7 Days, 7 Dimensions. My name is Richard Fink IV, and I am so excited to be doing this live mini-series of lessons on the 7 dimensions of singing. The idea behind this event is pretty simple. It's to say thank you to you, our viewers. We've gotten so much amazing feedback this year on the Vocal Gym and support from our Throga family and our subscribers that we wanted to show our gratitude by giving back and to help as many singers as we can. So each day for the next 7 days, we're going to introduce you to a new vocal dimension, explore an exercise or two with a special guest, and show you how to build your skills. And to start off, we're going to focus on the dimension of flexibility. Flexibility has to do with the condition of your vocal folds and how responsive they are when you speak and sing. And we couldn't think of a better guest for today's lesson than independent recording artist LYELL. In just 1 year's time from the release of her first single, LYELL has over 1 million plays with 54,000 monthly listeners on Spotify alone. And having spent half of 2022 touring the country as the opening act for Daughtry on the Dearly Beloved tour, she knows firsthand how difficult it is to maintain a healthy and flexible voice for singing, especially when dealing with allergies and having a history of reflux on top of a very busy rehearsal, performance, and recording schedule. So let's bring her in. Hello, LYELL, and welcome to your very public lesson. How are you?
Hi, I am good. A little nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous. We're gonna have fun.
I'm
quick
excited.
little history on how we met. I've actually known you for years because we come from the Rochester, New York area and other sides of the city,
Yeah.
and we have we're in the same circle of friends, right? So we have a lot of musicians and studio owners and things that we know. So we've known of each other for years. But I
Yeah.
have to admit, I've always been a fan. So when you reached out earlier this year for a lesson, I was like, yay, I finally get to
That's
work
so
with her.
cute. Thank
So
you.
it's,
That means so
oh,
much.
oh, you're welcome. So you and I have just been connecting over this past summer here a little bit, getting to know each other, working on your voice.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons you reached out primarily is just because of the health of your voice, and you're using it all the
Oh,
time
yeah.
and on the road, and like I said, rehearsals and everything else. So I'd like to start by asking you, what challenge do you face to maintain a flexible and responsive voice?
Um, it's a difficult balance for me. To like eat before shows and not eat before shows. It's like such a weird thing. And I'm such a coffee lover that I've had to make some adjustments, as we've talked about before. I've had to make some
Mm-hmm.
adjustments just because of, coffee is so dehydrating to your folds and like I mean, you can already hear some rasp, just because of allergies alone. Um, but it's it's difficult to, I think, just balance out like the things that you love and being like a professional singer. Like you have to adjust.
You are your instrument,
Yeah,
right? And we
exactly.
talk about that a lot. And I talk to all my students about that because it's so easy to take this really head to toe for granted, right? So
Exactly.
like you said, what you're eating, how
Hmm.
hydrated you are,
Hmm.
sleep schedule is a
Yeah.
huge one for the health of the voice, caffeine. And it's not to say you can't have coffee too.
Right.
I know you're in a bit of an extreme scenario, just so our viewers understand. I don't want the thought of like coffee equals
Oh,
bad
right.
singing or damage to the voice, nothing like that. It's just that because you do have some
Yes.
reflux, which is super not good for singing as a whole. It's basically where just even the fumes of the stomach acid,
Yes.
escape into the esophagus, and it just wreaks havoc in the laryngeal space and in the throat where they just become inflamed.
Right.
And if the folds are inflamed, if there's edema, they don't vibrate very well very quickly, and then that creates a lot of problems. So you have extra sensitivity to, uh, it's not just caffeine, it's really just acidic
Yes.
things,
Anything
right, as a
acidic.
whole.
Yeah.
So we mentioned earlier, flexibility has to do with the responsiveness of the vocal folds. For those of you who don't know, vocal folds are housed inside of the larynx. There's actually two sets of folds. There's the false folds and true folds. The false folds, let me start there, is kind of a thicker epidermis layer that's inside of the larynx, right behind this little bump right here. And that's engaged if we go to hold our breath, like lift something heavy. Sometimes we use it for certain textural qualities if we're singing like hard rock or metal, but tends to be quite abusive on the voice. So that's going to be a discussion for a different day. But underneath that are the true folds, and that consists of 5 layers. You have the outer layer, which is the epithelium. It's only like 4 cells thick. It's super thin and very similar to the kind of like that sheathing on the inside of your cheek. And that is the outermost layer. And then it has the SLP, which is short for superficial lamina propria, which is made up of 3 layers. That's the main area that's filled with hyaluronic acid and kind of a collagen-y type substance that vibrates against the airflow. And that's what triggers the sound wave by pushing air molecules around. And underneath that, the innermost layer is called the vocalis, and that's the actual muscle part. That's the part that thickens the mass of the folds and helps position it together. And also, just a quick note, it's kind of like in a V shape. So the edge of the folds start here right behind that little bump I was talking about, and then it opens up to the back. So it's open when we have air passing through, and then they come together, and then air passes between them, and that's what starts that wiggle response, creating the sound. So if we were to, let's see, I'm going to play a note here. If we were to just hum a note, perfect. Your vocal folds are vibrating at 220 cycles per second when you match that pitch, because the piano, I'm playing a 220, so the string of the piano will vibrate 220 times per second. So when you sing in tune, you are literally matching the speed of vibration, which is pretty cool.
That is cool.
So yeah, and then if we go up an octave, and we're still going to warm up. That's all right. This is good. We're going to warm up. We're going to talk about flexibility. So we're going to address that very thing. So you heard just kind of like a little slide there. No, it's perfect. So, I mean, that wasn't perfect, which is why we're going to work on flexibility.
Yeah. Perfect.
So the octave above is 440 cycles per second. So you're literally doubling in speed. And the responsiveness, the condition, and the flexibility of all of those layers matter when it comes to getting the sound that you want when we go to sing. So flexibility, the first dimension here, really focuses in on the warming up stage of the voice. It's getting the folds to respond, to get comfy, right?
Yes.
So we can hear a little bit in your speaking voice. We had some little vocal fry. We had a little breathiness kind of mixed in,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So, and then we heard when you went to go into your head voice, where your folds wanted to thin and vibrate really fast, it didn't cooperate as quickly as we might want it to,
No.
right?
Yeah.
So I think what I'd like to do is maybe do a little bit of a before and after. If you could indulge us with maybe singing a couple lines from a song, could be original cover, just to see how it feels, what it sounds like. We're going to warm up together, target flexibility, and then we'll come back to that song.
Okay, sounds great.
Cool. So did anything come to mind when I said, think of a song? Because I did not prepare you for that.
No, it's okay. Yeah, I do this cover of Nirvana I was doing it on tour, and It Smells Like Teen Spirit. The chorus, like, it's not that challenging, but there's some movement. So this will be a fun one, I think.
So I'm assuming you will not be delivering this in the same Kurt Cobain sort of way.
No, this is my acoustic
not be
cover.
flexibility based. All right, good.
You're
just
like,
making
wait,
sure we're
what?
on the same page here. Like, really? Nirvana? Is that where we're going to start our warm up with?
I know. All right, I don't know what key I'm going to be in, but we'll see. With the lights out, is this dangerous? Here we are now, entertain us. I feel stupid and contagious. Here we are now, entertain us. Listen to that breathiness.
Oh, that was so cool. Well, here's the thing, like, you are an experienced enough singer, and your skills are so strong that you can kind of mask that. Like, if we didn't say, oh, you're not warmed up and we're going to work on flexibility today, you could have sang that as just presenting that as, here is my version, and we would have accepted it, right? So truly,
Yeah.
so that's the benefit of being a skilled singer is we
Mhm.
can rely on our strengths to kind of mask maybe some of our weaknesses or
Absolutely.
compensate. However, as an artist, we don't never want to feel like we're compromising. We don't want to have a version in our head that we're not being able to present to our audience. So that's the flip side, right?
Absolutely.
So let's do this. We're going to do a little warm up. We're going to do me's, and it's going to be me, 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 me. Let me explain this real quick. The me in the exercise, the gives back pressure. Okay.
Mhm.
Now we talked about earlier as the air passes between the folds to get them to wiggle and vibrate. When we close the space past the larynx, that creates a downward force. So if I just hum, I got air passing between the folds and it hits this wall of resistance that gives back pressure. And that makes it easier for the folds to stretch. That's why exercises like lip trills or NG, straw technique, which we might get into today, there's all sorts of things built with back pressure that allow the folds to stretch. We're assisting the process to get the folds to just respond and loosen up. And this is particularly good if it's first thing in the morning, or maybe you had a concert late last night and you've got to do it again today. There's kind of like a recovery thing, right? Or if you're dealing with reflux or allergies, the drain, like me, also me,
Yeah, I
right?
know.
And that back pressure is really good to just get the folds responsive. Okay,
Yes.
it's just the part. The E, we want to hear a clear tone. So when I hear a me, when we get to the E part, we're hoping to not have a me, which we might start with, right?
Yeah,
And that's
probably.
okay. We're not planning for that, but it may happen. And then on the way down, me, this descending glissando, we're just going to let it fall wherever it goes. Don't worry about, matching a
Going
specific
down.
pitch. Just let it go. And I ended with a vocal fry. Did you catch that at the end?
Yes.
That lazy sound. This should feel comfortable. There's no squeeze. There's no fight. Lazy is really the best word for it. If there's any tension or discomfort, that's a red flag. Something's off. But if it's just a response to the folds being underwhelmed, not having enough air passing between them, they just get kind of like this irregular vibration. And that's all it is. Okay.
Right.
So the idea here is back pressure, stretch to go to a higher note, and then relax into a lazy massage type kind of quality with the folds. Does that make sense?
Yes.
All right, great. Let's give it a try. Breathe in.
Me, 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 me.
Good. Try it again. Breathe in.
Me, 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 me.
Good. And again.
Me, 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 me.
Good. Now, I want to make a little side note for those of you who maybe never really warmed up before or you're not familiar with this technique or approach. What we're doing right now is not singing. If you notice, LYELL isn't doing me, 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 me. Not that she would ever sound like
Could
that.
you imagine?
But that's not an uncommon approach because our instinct is to just make everything sound good, right? So you might even do a me, 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 or maybe do like a little riff, add a little vibrato, something. The instinct is to always sound good because it's such a personal instrument. You want to present it always as being amazing, right? It's kind of like that little part of the brain wanting to fight for that. But this is just a workout. It's literally just right now straight up yoga for the throat, right? We're just stretching the folds, loosening it up, finding balance, looking for minimalization. How little can you spend to get the sound? It's not about telling a story. It's not about connecting to your audience. Okay. So it's a very vulnerable place to be, right? That's why I opened up with this very public lesson. It's a different sensation than if you're by yourself or just one-on-one, right? Let's try it again. Breathe in.
Me, 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 me.
Good. And it should feel easy. Again.
Me, 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 me.
We're aiming aiming for that clear tone on the E. It's already, you got a couple moments that got a little bit more clear than they were a moment ago. Keep looking for that.
Me, 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 me.
Good. And I'm going to add one other thing to this, a variable. Can we bring the tongue forward? Kind of touching the butt, just like that. Okay. So it's me, me, me. Give that a try.
Me, 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 me.
Yes. You won't have to sing the song like this.
Yeah, but it
for
makes
the
sense.
exercise,
It makes so much sense. It's not in the way.
Exactly. It's literally taking the tongue going, hey, go here, right? Don't pull back. Don't try to steer the air pressure. Don't assist us with the pitch. We're literally just having it fall forward. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
So that's all we're looking to do. It's just a little detail. Now, because we hear that airiness in the voice right now still, let's switch to just M for a moment. So it's a little more back pressure throughout.
Okay.
For those of you watching, try it, and you can continue with the me as well. So it's tongue still.
I was just going to ask you that.
Forward.
Okay.
Yep. Give it a try. Good. Now, if you notice, you don't really hear the airiness anymore, right?
Nope.
There's more back pressure, a little bit easier to not overspend. That's what we're looking for. Good. Neck loose, shoulders loose. Always doesn't hurt to do a couple shoulder rolls here and there.
Snap, crackle, too. Pop. I know. That felt good. Okay.
Same thing. Nice. Breathe in again. And by the way, for those of you joining us, if this is too high for you, just jump down the octave. Just find the space that's right for your voice. Try it again. Good. A couple more. Keep it light. Yeah, be forgiving. You hear that little skip there, right? So let that happen. You might get a like you're thinking of the note, you're imagining the note. But here's what's cool. When you're thinking of the pitch, there's an anticipatory response where the muscles in charge of stretching the folds are doing that. It's like your folds are getting ready. Like, here we go.
Yeah.
The difference is you're not forcing them together to vibrate when they're not ready to yet. Okay. Let's try right here. Good. One more. Good. Now so you had nice, easy access from chest voice into your head voice, which really just, we'll talk about this when we talk about the range dimension, but basically your vocal folds are going from thick to thin, and the thinner they are, the faster they can vibrate. So the fact that you can produce the head voice pretty easily in the folds to thin is a great place. So again, we're thinning on these higher notes and then relaxing into a thicker position in that irregular vibration on the bottom. So let's come down. I'm gonna have you open up a little bit. So you can continue with the M's if that feels good. You can open back up to the me's where we were a moment ago. We're gonna try a little modification. We're gonna do an ooh. Still aiming for that clear tone. Good. Breathe in. Yes. Good. A few more. You good? And last one. Cool. So what I'd like to do is visit the song again, but we're going to do a lyric replacement exercise. We're still kind of in warm-up mode. I mean, a warm-up can last anywhere from a few minutes, depending on what you're going to be doing with your voice and time of day, condition of your voice. It can also be an hour, right? If you're going against like, you know, a lot of difficulties in terms of allergies and being sleep deprived, or just bored mid-lesson, all good. I get it all day long.
No, my larynx is just so relaxed right now that
Ooh,
it's just,
good
you know,
spin.
yeah,
Good
it's just,
spin.
you know.
I approve. No, what I was going to say is let's do something with a little bit more, a little even more back pressure. Can you do the lip trills, right? The sound.
Yeah, sometimes I have to do this though.
Yeah, you can do that. So instead of the words, run through that chorus with or whatever key that it was in,
I don't remember.
and just see how that feels. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Keep losing it.
That's okay. And for those of you who might trouble getting this sound at all, there's a couple options. You can do a tongue roll,
Right.
if that's comfortable. You can also just use like an NG sound. So NG is in the word sing. It's still a fair amount of back pressure. It's kind of a nice practice when you take the song and bring it into the vocal gym. You get to kind of like work through not the performance aspect of it, but there's still a feeling of, okay, here are the notes, here's my timing, I've got lyrics in my head, but you're also juggling, just balancing your instrument. So it's kind of a nice way to warm up. You just have to keep in mind that if the lyrics aren't there, don't perform it.
Don't perform it. That's a really good point. It's hard to, it's harder to do with a song.
Because you're wanting to get into performance mode. So lyrics is to perform. The vocal gym should be focused on just form. There's no per next to it, right? So the form is just how little can I spend? How does this feel? And developing coordination and just better behaviors with your instrument. Let's go back to that chorus and hear it again with the lyrics. So you are storytelling again.
Okay. With the lights out, is this dangerous? Here we are now. Entertain us, I feel stupid and contagious. Here we are now. Entertain us.
Yeah. How did that feel?
Oh, God, a lot easier, honestly. Just that little warm up.
I noticed you kind of threw in, okay, here's another little run. Here's you started to explore volume just a little bit more. So I could tell that you were willing to explore. And that's huge, because when you start to feel your instrument respond better, you start to take more risks, right? You start to play. And that's really what we're looking to do. And that sounded, by the way, your version of that is really cool. Do you have,
thank
you. Do you have an entire version of that? Is that like on YouTube or anything?
I do. Actually, I haven't released it anywhere, but it was like a little, almost like a fan giveaway type thing at one point. But I do have it. I should just put it on YouTube at this point. I'll do that.
I feel like your fans, maybe if there's enough time, we can or we just all need to become your fan, obviously. And then you could just check it out that way. That works too.
Perfect.
Another quick note too is when you drink water, I just want to say this in day 1, because this sets up day 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 for the week here, is hydration plays a massive role in the condition of your voice. Can you imagine when the folds have to vibrate as fast as we were talking about earlier? They need to be lubricated, right? Because if they're not lubricated, that vibration builds on heat, and that heat causes them to swell. So you really want to stay ahead here. You always want to think ahead, because when you drink water, as I'm talking about water, I'm like,
I know.
My subconscious is, you must drink water now. That was way too Pepsi commercial. Really, Throga.
Wow. Beautiful, with the stance and everything.
No, it was totally, that was not planned, but I just caught a glimpse of it, like that didn't look right. Anyway, with the Throga water. Not a real thing. Just get some good water.
It's magic.
The moment that I just had that sip of water, it's going to take about 20 minutes from the time I just sip that now, 20 minutes from now, that the water molecules will start to be distributed in my bloodstream. It has to go into your esophagus, into your stomach. It has to be in the intestines, and then it has to be distributed throughout the body, right? And that's if you have an empty stomach. If you just had food, it'll take even longer.
Yeah, it's
And
annoying.
when you drink the water, it's not distributed equally, meaning that it goes first to the vital organs, to your heart and your brain and things like that. And then only if they're satisfied, then the extra water will be stored in the mucosal membranes and in your larynx.
Wow.
So in other words, by the time your brain says, hey, you're thirsty, you are way behind. So that you have to be kind of like proactive with that as a musician, as a singer. So plan ahead for that always. Okay.
That makes so much sense.
So I just wanted to take a little time, talk about that. Hydration is your best friend when it comes to singing, particularly when we're talking about flexibility. So where were we? Oh, yes. The Smells Like Teen Spirit. You are going to release that song for all of us. I believe that's what you said. And
yes.
Oh, no, I was going to say, so mid-performance,
oh,
if
yeah.
you're starting to feel that, right? So you can sip on some water just to like take a moment. Just the action of swallowing just kind of massages that area. So that's not a bad thing.
Oh.
And if there's a guitar solo, saxophone solo, just a long riff, drum solo, just ask your fellow musicians to solo, fill the space, give yourself vocal rest, and vocalize, right? You can just little creaky door action, let it feel comfortable. I recommend not holding the microphone in your hand while you're doing it. It's very confusing to the audience. Or even walk off stage and whatever you need to do to kind of just keep the folds responsive, right?
100%.
You can also take a moment to remind yourself that you know the material, right? How many times do we're like, okay, I have to push, I have to hear myself, I have to feel the note. If you are well rehearsed, give yourself the opportunity to trust, okay?
Yes.
And trust that the note's going to be there. You don't have to get loud to produce the sound. Let the microphone do the work for you. Unless you're singing of operatic nature, right? If you're using off mic, that is a whole different thing, right?
Yeah.
But otherwise, with the style I know you sing of like, pop, rock, alternative singer-songwriter in that space, right?
Yeah.
We use texture, right? A whisper can fill the room.
Yeah.
So let the microphone do the work for you. Like literally physically loosen the grip on the microphone because tension can start there.
That's a
right?
good point. Yeah.
And just relax here. In fact, what I'd like to do is in those moments where you're having trouble hearing yourself or you're feeling like the voice is starting to cut out a little bit, you're holding the mic here, but imagine the microphone behind you. It's a weird little mental trick, but if you imagine the sound is behind you, you're no longer trying to get the sound out to the audience and you're just letting it, like it kind of like almost neutralizes the spine a little bit. It's like, oh,
that's
it's back here.
interesting.
So I have to you're not literally putting the sound back there, but mentally your posture changes and helps relax a little bit. So it's kind of a cool little trick to reset.
I like that.
Yeah. And shoulder movement. I mean, if you're on stage, maybe can get awkward. You can dance. Exactly. You're all over the place. Like I've seen you lay down on stage. Like
yeah, that's a lot.
I caught you on tour and it's just like, where'd she go? I can't see her anymore. So, but that movement, funny. I mean, use the space in a way, if you can get certain muscles to just let go, lay down, hang from the rafters, switch, even just taking the microphone, lean on one side and then switch hands. Your whole posture changes, your tensions change. Try to loosen up the exterior muscles, and that has a positive reflection, a positive domino effect on the interior muscles. So that can be of assistance as well.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I like it.
So did you have any questions?
I didn't. The interesting part was the hydration for me. I mean, I always knew if you're thirsty, then it's too late. Like you're already dehydrated in a way. But that's a really good point. I didn't realize it. Obviously, it distributes and then it gets there at some point.
It gets there at some point if you drink enough.
Right.
right? And by the
Right.
way, the idea of it being too late doesn't mean just don't bother.
Oh no.
It's too late.
Forget it.
Eh,
It's fine.
we're just gonna keep going.
Oh, no, I mean, like,
What's
it's kind.
interesting, yeah, and what's interesting is the action of sipping water, even if you're dehydrated, like instantly, you may have noticed this, like you have a sip of water and immediately it's like, oh, my voice is back.
Yeah.
And yet the
Why is
water,
that?
it's two things. One is the action of swallowing. There's like that little kind of like,
Oh,
because there's tension there and then it relaxes. But more so, it just cues the brain that water's on its way. And so panic starts to not be as much of an issue. Because when you feel dehydrated, it's like you start to worry and the
yeah.
muscles respond by tensing. So the swallowing action helps, and then the idea of like water's on its way. It's like bathing the brain of like it's coming, we got you, and so you relax. It's not actually more hydrated. That's why 5 minutes later you're like, why didn't it work? Why is the tension back?
Sorry, I do have one last question because you keep talking
Please.
about swallowing being such a good, thing. Uh, I've always heard clearing your throat, coughing, those are super aggressive on your vocal folds. How do you feel I mean, would you tell people to swallow rather than, like clear their throat?
Well, if you have to clear your throat, it's usually an involuntary response. I mean, we
Yeah.
can hold it back to a degree depending on what's
Yeah.
going on. Allow for that, but you can actually change a little bit how you cough,
Hmm.
because if you imagine if there's a little bit of uh, mucus, or it could just be water or food particles, anything that is getting into your larynx, that's your pathway to your airway, right, your lungs.
Right.
So if your body coughs or has a spasmodic response to it, that's okay. That's your body just protecting itself, right?
Right.
So that's all good.
Yeah.
But there's two different types of coughing. You've got a phonated cough, which is you hear that you
Uh-huh.
hear the folds coming together and vibrating,
Yep.
versus the latter is
Yes.
better, because
Oh,
remember I mentioned earlier the false folds. So that's like a thicker fold, and it's not made up of multiple layers that vibrate, right? So they come up when you go to lift something heavy, and if you go to cough, they come up and they get triggered by the air pressure underneath it. They trap it, I should say, and it's
uh,
or you've got your
oh,
tongue pulled back, and that kind of like holds back the air pressure and then lets it explode. It's the explosion that we want, because that's going to get the mucus or whatever's
whatever.
obstructing the airway out, right? The
Okay.
idea is to minimize the folds being involved, the true folds. So is way more abusive than a non-voiced or non-phonated cough. So
I
cough
never
whenever
knew.
you need, but try to avoid the voiced when you can. Also like to use that as an opportunity to vocalize. So if I cough, whether
Hmm.
I'm sick or just swallowed wrong, whatever, immediately I do that little exercise we talked about at the beginning. So if I cough and I'll go, mm, right, because I just slam the folds
Oh,
together. I'm like, I'm just gonna do that. Like,
so I
if
can
you clap,
stretch.
take your hands about body width apart and
Hmm.
just as hard as you can slam together. Do you
Ow.
feel that sting?
Yeah.
Now
I should
you're
do
like, why
that.
did you hurt me? Now do you feel this movement? This kind of like massages it out and feels better.
Yeah.
It's that kind of sensation, right? So the cough is super violent. And by the way, what we just did is very representative of what happens here. The difference is you have tactile feedback here in your fingers. This is
You can
highly
feel
sensitive.
it.
You have
Yeah.
pain sensors that go to the brain. You don't have any in your vocal folds. So as a result, you're just going by what you hear as a cue, or if you start to feel muscles or pain or tension outside of the larynx, and that's when it's the inside's really beat up and now it's pulling on other muscles to kind of save the day.
Wow. Yeah.
So that little is kind of like doing this, like, okay, all right, didn't mean to
A little
hurt you, but we're
stretch.
all good.
Sorry about
And
that.
then you go about your day. Exactly.
That's really cool. Okay, I didn't know about that, difference of coughing. That's good to know.
Cool. Well, I'm happy to help. And Lyle, thank you so much for joining us
Thank you so
today and
much.
sharing your voice with us.
Thank you for having me.
Where can our viewers find your music, actually?
Best places are Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, wherever you get your music. And you can find me on Instagram at LYELL Girl. LYELL,
Perfect.
LYELL, girl.
We'll put a link in the description as well. And thank you to everyone watching. I hope you found this first of 7 lessons insightful. We have so much more to explore over the next 6 days, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. In the meantime, be sure to leave any questions or comments you may have, subscribe to this channel, and check out the description below where you can sign up to receive a summary of today's lesson with a downloadable MP3 to practice along. For now, let's keep warming up. Lyle, you want to join me?
Sure.
Here we go.